Hey everyone, Carl Carpenter here, and I just wanted to do a quick video on the transport layer of the OSI model. Uh, so again, we're breaking these OSI videos down into smaller chunks to make it easier to digest, easier to understand, not make it so overwhelming. So last video we did was the third layer of the OSI model, the network layer, and there's already a physical and data link layer already, video out there already. So this is the fourth layer from the bottom up, the transport layer, and we'll just jump right into that so we can get the ball rolling and get done faster as well. Again, the fourth layer of the OSI model, starting from the bottom up, is the transport layer, and much like I've said in the other videos, layers in the OSI model only have to interact with the layer directly above it and directly below it. So the transport layer does have quite a bit of interaction with the network layer in general, because it has to send IP addressing, convert them into frames. It has to mess around with protocols and so on and so forth. So let's get into this. So data at the transport layer is called a segment. And much like how frames are a combination of bits from the physical layer, and much like how packets are a combination of frames from the data link layer, segments are combinations of packets at the transport layer. The concept behind, one of the concepts behind the transport layer is that we want to make sure packets are delivered error-free and without duplicates. So we don't want to receive the same information more than once, and there's a variety of different ways that that happens to make sure that we get data that's clean, that's accurate, that's uncorrupted, things like that. So obviously, going up from the network layer into the transport layer, we're taking packets and we're chunking them together and calling them segments. Well, it's the same thing in reverse. We're going to take segments and we're going to break them up into smaller, more manageable packets that the network layer can digest. Now, packets, and we'll probably talk about this later in relation to packet size, but there is a specific maximum packet size that should be viewed or should be understood if you're going to get into the down and dirty on networks and networks in general and so on. One of the important things to remember about the transport layer is that the primary purpose is for error checking. That is absolutely one of the things you could be tested on when it comes down to it. If you're going to try to go for like a Network Plus or CCNA or anything like that, you should be able to verbalize or answer a question. What is the primary function of the transport layer? Well, error checking is that one, or another way of saying it, what layer of the OSI model performs error checking? That's a trick question, because CRC checks, which could be viewed as a form of error checking, happens at the data link layer. There's a form of basic error checking at the network layer. So you'd have to really kind of look into that one a little bit. Also, certainly valuable for a test situation, providing end-to-end transport services. This is what one of the functions behind the transport layer is, to hide anything below it from anything above it. So when you're running FTP, for example, the FTP protocol and the FTP program, if you're running an FTP program, does not care if you're running using TCP/IP or IPX, if you're ancient and still living in old Novell 3 land. It doesn't care. What they're looking for is transparency in such a way that the applications don't have to rely on a particular type of technology in order for that application to work. So we have end-to-end transport services. You should expect what provides end-to-end transport services as a possible question on a certification test, if you plan on doing that. And again, a good example of end-to-end with transport with invisibility to it would be like using Microsoft Word. If you're on a fiber optic network versus an IP-based Cat5, 10-based T network, Word doesn't care. It just wants to work. So part of that is the transport of invisibility that the transport layer provides to the application. Also allows for the building and tearing down of virtual circuits and maintains flow control. So this absolutely will be on a test somewhere. What establishes and terminates virtual circuits, not establishing and terminating links, which is the logical link control sublayer of the data link layer, but what establishes or builds and tears down virtual circuits. That would be the transport layer. The transport layer in relation to maintaining flow control, there's several different kinds. I'm just going to touch very, very briefly on that. They're simple to remember. Windowing is where two devices, they talk to each other and say, hey, I can accept 5 packets at one time, and they agree on it, and then 5 packets go back and forth based on whatever they agreed upon. Source quench flow control is when data is sent and it's just rapidly sent one after the other until the receiving computer is like, hold on buddy, this is just too much, I need you to slow down. And then the rate gets slows down, but then it eventually builds back up. And buffering in relation to flow control is when everything is buffered in RAM and then it is sent on. And then same concept back and forth. This is why you see computers that require more and more RAM, or high RAM counts in routers and switches, and high RAM counts in servers, especially servers or devices that have a lot of data transmission. Is if buffering is in place and you have a low amount of RAM, you could have packets getting dropped, or data getting dropped and just thrown away, which obviously isn't good. So understanding flow control from the transport layer is important, and also understanding how flow control at the transport layer interacts with your network level devices is super important as well. All right, also at the transport layer, we have what's known as connectionless and connection-oriented communication. So connectionless communication is pretty much data is sent, and hopefully the receiver got it. If the receiver didn't get it, then so bad. Too bad, so sad. That is the way it is. So UDP is a connectionless oriented protocol. So an example of a UDP protocol that is connectionless would be TFTP. So if you've experienced TFTP, it's used a lot in layer 2, layer 3 devices. It's used a lot in initializing voice over IP phones, things like that. UDP is connectionless. So let's say somebody did not get all the information that they were expecting. The data was sent, but the receiver didn't get it or not. So what happens in that case? It's not like the receiver can say, hey, send me step 9 of the 20-step document you're going to send me, because they don't really know what step 9 is because it's connectionless. So in that case, what would happen is that all of the data would have to be resent all over again. And obviously the opposite of that is connection oriented. That's where data is sent in chunks, little tiny pieces at a time, and as data is received, the computer that received the data sends an acknowledgement saying, hey, I got chapter 1 of the book. Go ahead and send chapter 2. Okay, chapter 2 came in. Go ahead and send chapter 3. Oh, chapter 3 did not come in good, so please resend chapter 3. That's connection oriented. So again, connectionless is there's no reliability. It's kind of a best effort on receiving it. Connection oriented is when every time the data is sent, the receiver acknowledges and says, okay, send more. And TCP, Transmission Control Protocol, is connection oriented. And UDP, by the way, stands for User Datagram Protocol. A good example of a TCP oriented example would be like HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, things like that. A good example of a UDP, real-time example of a UDP protocol would be like live television that's sent over the internet or something like that. but it's live. So you're either watching it and you're getting it, or you're not watching it and you have to figure out how you're going to get it later on. There's also a set of transport layer protocols that are found here. I've already talked about TCP, UDP, SPX. That's a Novell program or protocol that I doubt anybody's ever going to see. The whole thing about SPX is IPX/SPX, just like TCP/UDP. The only thing is that SPX is the transport layer, IPX is the network layer. Then you have NWLink, that is Microsoft's version. Sorry about that. That's Microsoft's version of IPX/SPX when they tried to take over, the server world, which they did successfully, by the way. NetBEUI, that's another Microsoft protocol. ATP stands for AppleTalk Transport Protocol. So pretty much if you see a protocol and the word transport is in it, then it's a layer 4 protocol, and so on. All right, and with that, I will let you guys go. Thank you for watching, listening, and everything else. If you have requests, then certainly interested in your opinions on what you'd like for me to discuss. If you have any comments or suggestions, certainly let me know about that as well. Certainly would appreciate if everybody would subscribe to the YouTube channel. And with that, I will talk to you guys later. See ya.